Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Progressive range of motion squats, starting with your heavier weight than your 1 rep max and doing partial squats, getting progressively lower over time until you reach parallel. Good idea or way to destroy your knees? I hope you don't mean up in the air. Like how are you going to control the range of motion in the air? That's what destroys your knees. You do it with box squats. Here's what you need to understand with this. And I'm not saying I don't ever do this with any of my lifters with board work or box work or any of that, something similar. I hope you mean purely for your max effort day. Okay? Because you're going to have to do hypertrophy work for the other stuff. In other words, if the only exercise you are doing, I'm going to state that again. If the only exercise you are doing for those primary movers is the partial work, you will not get the desired result. You have to have some hypertrophy for the fibers of the specific joint angles you eventually want to get to. Okay? When you're doing this, it's just because we're doing max effort lifts. If you wanted to do a progression pattern like this on your max effort day on conjugate, it would be perfectly fine if you use a box to control the height. If you use pins or chains or slings to control the range of motion on some sort of press. Okay? If you use 1-inch pads and blocks to bring the weight down on a deadlift. You could do a similar effect by changing chain weight. Right, but the thing is, you're taking them to maxes. You are straining against a 1 rep max, a heavy weight. All right, I want to make that clear because you're straining to a max. And yeah, you could do that for max effort. You could start with boards and do the same thing on a board press. You can start with a 5 board, next week max to a 4 board, 3 board, 2 board, 1 board, then the chest. But you better be doing other pec, delt, and tricep work in there. Okay. Same thing with your squats. You could do that with a box squat, but you better be making sure you're doing other work. Okay? You're still going to need your speed squats. You're still going to need to be training your hamstrings and possibly your quads or whatever else you need to train. You need to be training everything still. You're not just going to do these partials as a progressive range of motion in isolation. Because if you do, you're not going to get very good results. In fact, you're going to be horrified at how bad your results are. Don't be surprised if your squat doesn't go up or regresses. But could you do this as your choice for a max effort rotation on your LME days? Yeah, you could do that. Well, you could have 6 different heights of box squats that you progressively bring down lower. And it'll take you 12 weeks to get there because you're going to alternate it with a squat and a deadlift. Right? That would probably be okay. Right? But you need to take them to a max. It's not about starting with higher than your... No. You take each ME day to a max. It doesn't matter what your max is on the main exercise. It matters what your max is at that height. With that chain, with that block, with that box. Or it also won't work. All right, next question. Jason, is it reasonable for my good morning 10 rep max to be equal to my squat 10 rep max and my RDL to be slightly more than my conventional, or do I have a major muscle imbalance? No. It's going to depend on a lot of factors, leverages and things, but we'll get to the second one in a minute. Let's answer that first one first. In a perfect world, that's what you would have. Now, here's the other question I would ask you. In a perfect world, why would you ever do a 10 rep max squat? Why do we know our 10 rep max? Are we doing 10 rep sets on squats? Do you see me do 10 rep sets of squats? Do you see me programming 10 rep sets of squats? Have you heard me talk about any of my clients doing 10 rep sets of squats? The answer is no. Before anyone goes digging, no. The answer is no. I do 10 rep good mornings. We max out on the squat. We do speed work with the squat. Okay. Haven't I said that Louis has made up phenomenal points about trying to get your max good morning up to your max squat? Well, if we assume 70% is a 10 rep, right? You can do 70% of your 1 rep max for 10. It's a good starting point. Well, they would be the same then. I don't recommend people do 10 rep sets of squats personally. I think there's better ways to use your training and recovery resources. So it's perfectly reasonable. What's your 1 rep max on them? If we can get them equal, then you've actually got a great situation. That's not an imbalance. That's perfection. Okay? That's a good situation to be in. It might be an imbalance, but it's an imbalance in a positive direction in that case. So I see no issue with that. I'm concerned with using the whole 10 rep max thing. Again, unless it's estimated, because again, you shouldn't be doing 10 rep sets to failure on the squat. My opinion, by the way, that's all that is. The way I coach, the system I use. RDL. I've had plenty of people who can RDL more than they conventional deadlift. Not that uncommon. Because again, it's a different range of motion and you're not pulling from the floor. You're not pulling from a dead stop. You've got a stretch reflex. Okay. Ambiguous range of motion on an RDL, by the way. For guys who are like, oh, it's tough. Guys say it's a full range of motion. Well, maybe when you're doing rep work, when you do a true max, ambiguous range of motion with a stretch reflex and no hard stop. Using same muscles as deadlift. Unless your grip gives out, and most guys strap up for these. It's not unreasonable, and in many cases for it to be more. Not unreasonable is what it is. Okay. I don't think that's really particularly always indicative of an imbalance either. Right? I say it might be lower body imbalance, worst case, but again, looking at the good morning versus the squat, probably not. I don't know. I've seen it a number of times. Guys who can RDL more than they can deadlift. Again, is what it is. Nature of the exercise. It's the nature of the exercise. And again, people who don't understand the range of motion difference, it is a different range of motion. You don't have to get the same torso angles and hip angles. All right, next question and last question of the week. Coach, are there any exercises that should not be used for 10 rep sets accessory work, or does it come down to a matter of the particular movement doesn't matter? Thanks. Well, you need to be looking in terms of recovery. Okay, looking in terms of recovery. I don't recommend a bunch of 10 rep sets on real wide grip bench, maybe for some novices. Or advanced lifters, probably not. Rough on your shoulders. I'd rather see a floor press, a dumbbell press, a closed grip press. I'm not big on high rep squats. Not big on high rep conventional deadlifts like that. You need exercises that are easier on your total recovery. And we're always going to deal with limited volume. Like you're always going to be able to squeeze in more volume on the smallest movements. Okay. What do you see me do running the whole conjugate system? A lot of times I've done 5x5s, 4x6s, 3x10s is pretty common for me these days for big exercises, big multi-joint movements. Smaller movements, I'll do more sets. That would include like the reverse hyper. It's easy to recover from. Look in terms of how do you recover from it. Okay. Look at the recovery of it. Smaller bodybuilding type movements are very well suited for all your 10 rep accessories. But even then, you need to be looking at how many total sets you're doing. Those are going to handle more total sets. Keeping in mind, that does help you get stronger. But no, there's a lot of movements. It comes down to any exercise that's difficult to recover from. You should probably pick something that's easy to recover from for an accessory. Because accessories are done for what purpose? Hypertrophy or weak links. We care about stimulus to fatigue ratios. It doesn't mean just because an exercise has a fairly bad stimulus to fatigue ratio doesn't mean it won't work, doesn't mean you won't gain muscle. This may not be an optimal choice for you. You might get better progress with something else to which you can do slightly more volume and recover from it slightly easier. Or it's easier on your overall joints. Okay? Injury prevention, inflammation, pain, all those things. That adds up, guys. If you're walking around feeling beat up all the time when you could have got the same extra muscle growth from something easier to recover from, and still come in and hit your big lifts and your heavy lifts, you'll be better off for it. Your quality of life is better and you're less likely to get hurt. That's why we balance these things. There's a reason we use accessory movements. So you need to look at the individual exercise and even ask, is there something better I could be doing in this slot right now? Rather than what am I doing inappropriate, is there something I have access to that's probably a better choice for now? Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.